Last season, the NBA introduced a new award to the league named the Clutch Player of the Year award, going to the player who outperformed the competition in the final minutes of the game to help their team get a win. And of course, they introduced this after the year that DeMar DeRozan was the clear clutchest player of the league in the 21-22 season. He would go on to be a finalist and finish third in voting last season, but this year, with the level of play we saw from DeMar in clutch moments, what the league defines as games that are within 5 points with 5 minutes left to play, DeMar DeRozan in those moments was on another level this season, and in my opinion was a shoo-in to win the award for all the reasons I'll explain in a bit. But somehow, when the award winner was announced live on TNT, we got the news that Steph Curry would finish in taking home the award. And while I wasn't going to be making a video on this because at this point it's like whatever, bowl season is over, what difference does it really make anyway, but given I made a video on Coby White getting snubbed of the Most Improved Player of the Year award, I felt like I couldn't ignore this one because this was clearly, in my opinion anyway, much more egregious, and I wanted to set the record straight in laying out all the facts for why DeMar was more deserving of the award. So what's going on, everyone? You were listening to Bulls Central here. Hope you're all doing well. Now, let me first say that despite the voters getting this wrong, there were actually a number of individual voters who got it right and didn't simply vote for Steph because it's Steph Curry, it's a big name, and you think of how deadly he's been in his career and finishing off games in the past. But the voting overall was very close, even closer than the Most Improved Player voting between Coby and Tyrese Maxey, with DeMar getting 34 first place votes compared to Steph's 45 first place, and the total number of points across all voters of 298 to 272 in favor of Steph Curry's. So it was close, but when you actually break down the numbers, DeMar should have won this award easily. Here's what gets me about this award and who they ended up handing it to. Unlike Most Improved Player of the Year or Sixth Man of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, even MVP, some of these awards are a bit subjective. Like, it's hard to quantify what it truly means to be more improved than another player in a given season. Even Defensive Player of the Year, sure, there are metrics and analytics that can inform you how good a player was defensively, but it's also not as clear cut, because defensive statistics in general favor big men who are able to get more blocks, more defensive rebounds, deflections in the paint, ball stoppers in the post. And when you look at the history of the Defensive Player of the Year award, it usually has gone to a big man, when in reality there are a lot of excellent defensive guards who don't always show up on the defensive metrics and don't get their love for how pestering and hard-nosed defenders they are on the perimeter. MVP, how do you really measure who's the most valuable player? Is it the player that impacted winning the most? Is it just stat padding? Is it really just the best player in the league on the best team? Yeah, you can measure these things using various factors and data points, but when it comes to the Clutch Award, it's not subjective. It's actually very easily quantifiable. You're looking at a player's performance in the final 5 minutes of a close game. And if we're strictly looking at that, hell, even we can broaden it further to the entire fourth quarter. DeMar takes it easily. Let's put some of the numbers out there to illustrate this. DeMar led all players in fourth quarter scoring this season. Steph Curry was 5th in the league. When it comes to scoring in clutch minutes, DeMar was actually 2nd, slightly below Steph, with DeMar scoring a total of 182 points in the clutch versus Steph's 189, so only 5 more points. But DeMar actually averaged more points in the clutch, given Steph played 3 more clutch games than DeMar did this season. What's more noteworthy, though, was their efficiency in the clutch, both shooting 49% from the field, but DeMar surprisingly was more efficient shooting from deep, 46.7% overall from 3, whereas Steph shot 45. Granted, Steph was shooting it on much higher volume in the clutch, but when you look at what both of these guys did for their teams in the final minutes of the game, the Bulls' clutch record this season was 27-17, while the Warriors finished 500 in the clutch at 24-24. DeMar was a plus 94 in total clutch minutes, whereas Curry was just a mere plus 21. Massive, massive difference. The other thing to consider here is that the Warriors overall underperformed in the clutch for a team that finished the season with 46 wins, but were only 500 in clutch games. They had a much harder time closing out games than the Bulls did, a team that was not as good, only won 39 games on the year, but somehow managed to go 27-17 in clutch games. According to Seth Partnow, who is a stats guru for The Athletic, the Bulls were the largest clutch overperformers since 2013, even despite losing that final game in overtime to the New York Knicks. This also is a wild stat, and this comes to us courtesy of Kevin Anderson of NBC Sports Chicago. DeRozan had 56 overtime points this season, which was the most by any player since Kobe Bryant did in 2007. And look, take away the objective numbers for a second that favor DeMar over Steph Curry. The eye test and what DeMar was able to do in willing this team to so many victories that they likely would not have been able to win had it not been for DeMar. His ability to calm guys down when things were getting out of control and the opposing team was going on a run. His ability to draw contact and get to the line to stop the clock and generate offense to get back into the game when they were behind. The clutch tying basket against the Indiana Pacers to send that game into overtime, and then obviously taking the win in overtime. A game the Bulls should have lost had it not been for DeMar's heroics. And yes, I obviously didn't watch Steph this season as much as I did DeMar because I watched every Bulls game and I know I'm a bit biased. But the games that I did watch the Warriors play, I saw far too many mistakes from Curry down the stretch of games to give him this award. And yes, that includes the game I attended in San Francisco, which ended up being a clutch game where DeMar took over down the stretch and single-handedly won the Bulls that game despite the Warriors coming back and making a run at the end of it and looking like they were going to take it. But DeMar did what he does best, calm the guys down and put the ball in his hands and confidently finished off the Warriors. So yes, I get it. I am biased, but looking at the numbers and witnessing what DeMar was able to do at the end of games this season, it is laughable that they gave this award to Steph Curry. Just my take. I would love to hear what you guys think. Let me know in the comments. As always, be sure to subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.